There are places on the world map that were never meant for humans. No matter how powerful you are, and no matter how much knowledge you possess, the moment you step inside these locations, you cross into an entirely different world. These are secrets hidden by governments, places guarded by armies, and doors that have remained locked for centuries. But today, you are about to glimpse all those places whose reality has silenced scientists, historians, military experts, even intelligence agencies. A valley where every person who enters mysteriously disappears. An island so restricted that no government on Earth permits anyone to set foot on it. A forest where those who enter never return. An island where humans once hunted other humans. A cave where the silence doesn't echo footsteps, but something far more unsettling. A radio tower that still transmits signals to an unknown force. A secret base where objects that fall from the sky are concealed. And a railway station that remains officially closed. Yet people claim to see passengers arriving every single day. The Catacombs of Paris, a city the world knows for its romance, its charm, its lights, its cafes, and art. People travel from across the globe to experience its beauty, unaware that beneath their feet lies a second hidden city. One built not by architects, but by death itself. Deep under the streets of Paris rests a labyrinth so dark, so silent, and so overwhelmingly eerie that even the bravest explorers hesitate before stepping inside. Tonight, we descend into that world, the Catacombs of Paris, home to the remains of more than 6 million people. A place where time feels frozen, where the air tastes ancient, and where the silence is so complete. It can feel as though something is listening. Imagine yourself walking through a busy Parisian street. Cars passing, people laughing, sunlight reflecting off the old stone buildings. Everything appears alive, but just 20 meters underground, there's a world entirely opposite. A world where the walls are lined with human bones, arranged with unsettling precision. Skulls stare out with hollow eyes. Femurs are stacked like bricks. The corridors stretch endlessly into darkness, and the deeper you go, the more you feel the weight of history pressing against your chest. This underground maze wasn't built as a tomb. Its origins go back hundreds of years, to a time when Paris was expanding rapidly. In the 12th century, limestone was needed to construct the city's buildings. Workers dug deeper and deeper, carving out enormous underground quarries. Over decades, these quarries grew so vast that an entire ghostly network was created beneath the city. Rooms, tunnels, shafts, all interconnected, all supporting the world above without anyone realizing the danger. Eventually, people forgot about these underground hollows. No maps, no warnings, just empty space beneath a growing capital. The real trouble began above ground. By the 1700s, Paris faced a horrific crisis. Cemeteries were overflowing. Bodies were being buried on top of previous graves. Soil was saturated with decay, and the smell lingered through entire neighborhoods. The most infamous cemetery, Les Innocents, became nothing short of a biohazard. Residents reported foul odors drifting into their homes. Wells were becoming contaminated by decomposing flesh. Even walking near the cemetery made some people fall ill. Then, one stormy night in 1774, disaster struck. A section of road beside Les Innocents simply collapsed. The ground gave way, revealing a mass of skeletons tumbling out of the earth. Coffins split open. Bones scattered across the street. For the people of Paris, it felt as though the dead were rising. Authorities could no longer ignore the problem. They made a drastic decision. The cemeteries would be emptied, and the bodies transferred into the abandoned quarries below Paris. And so began one of the darkest operations in European history. At night, always at night, black, silent wagons rolled through the streets. Their wheels were wrapped in cloth to muffle the sound. Priests walked alongside them, reciting prayers under their breath. The wagons carried bones piled high under thick covers, heading towards a small, unremarkable opening in the ground. The entrance to the underworld. Down narrow stairways, workers carried bones by the thousands, dumping them unceremoniously into the quarries. No order, no dignity, just endless stacks of death being swallowed by the darkness. The workers began reporting strange occurrences, whispers behind them, footsteps that didn't match their own, cold pockets of air brushing past torches that extinguished without reason. Some refused to return. A few came back visibly shaken, never speaking of what they experienced. The operation continued for years until the quarries were filled with millions of bones. But it was chaos. Bones heaped in piles, tunnels half-blocked, and no structure whatsoever. This changed when Louis-Étienne Héricard de Thury took charge. He envisioned something different, an underground necropolis arranged with precision and care. Under his direction, bones were stacked neatly, skulls at the front, long bones behind them, smaller fragments filling the gaps. The tunnels slowly transformed into corridors of organized death arches of skulls, decorative walls of femurs, ribbons of bone stretching into darkness. Carvings were added to stone pillars, including the infamous warning, "Stop, this is the Empire of Death." Workers continued to report chilling sensations. Whispers, moving shadows, a feeling of being watched. Yet the work moved on. Soon, curious citizens began sneaking into the catacombs. Early explorers carried candles and ropes, tying them to their waists to avoid getting lost. The catacombs are a maze. One wrong turn, and you vanish forever. One of the most haunting stories from this era is that of Filbert, a hospital porter. In 1793, he entered the catacombs for reasons unknown. He carried only a candle and a rope. He never returned. 11 years later, his skeleton was found deep underground, face down, arm stretched forward as if reaching for help. His rope had been severed. His candle had melted into a small puddle of wax beside him. No one knows what happened in those final moments. Explorers say the air still changes in that section of the catacombs. Some claim they hear faint whispers or a man calling out in distress. Although a small part of the catacombs is open to the public, the vast majority, over 300 kilometers of tunnels, remains forbidden. These areas are extremely dangerous. Some passages are so narrow that even turning around is impossible. Others lead to sudden drops, dead ends, or unstable ceilings that could collapse at any moment. But danger isn't the only reason they're off limits. People who have entered illegally, known as cataphiles, tell stories that defy explanation. Some say they heard distant music, as if from a long-forgotten century. Others heard children laughing or crying. Some swore they saw figures dressed in old clothing disappearing into the shadows without making a sound. The deeper one ventures, the stronger the feeling becomes, a sense that the catacombs are alive in their own way, not with bodies, but with something older, something watching, something waiting. Even scientists studying the tunnels have acknowledged strange acoustic phenomena, low vibrations that feel like they're coming from the walls themselves. The official explanation is structural resonance, but explorers insist it feels like something breathing. Poveglia Island, just a few kilometers from the romantic canals of Venice, lies a place so terrifying, so feared that even local fishermen refuse to sail near it. The water around it is calm. The sky above it is clear, yet the island itself feels heavy, as if the air carries centuries of trapped screams. This is Poveglia Island, a place banned by the Italian government, a place no tourist is allowed to step on, and a place that has been called the world's darkest island. From a distance, Poveglia looks like an overgrown ruin. Trees twist over abandoned buildings, windows stare like black, empty eyes, and a single leaning bell tower juts out of the center. But behind this quiet appearance lies a history soaked in fear, suffering, and death. For centuries, Poveglia has been a place where the unwanted were sent, a place where people were dumped to die, to disappear, or simply to be forgotten. The island's nightmare began during the Black Plague. When the disease swept through Europe, Venice turned Poveglia into a quarantine zone. Anyone who showed even the slightest sign of illness was dragged away from their families, thrown onto boats, and transported to the island. They were not taken there to recover, they were taken there to die. Survivors wrote that Poveglia became a gateway to hell, where bodies were piled into enormous pits and burned day and night. The smoke was said to rise for weeks, turning the sky above Venice a strange, dark color. Historians estimate that more than 160,000 people may have died on the island, their ashes mixing with the soil. Even today, more than half of Poveglia's ground is literally made of human remains. Those who lived on the island during the plague described hearing cries echo through the trees long after the sick had been burned. They claimed the air carried voices, whispers, and sudden gusts of icy wind that made lanterns flicker violently. Venetian sailors wrote warnings in their logs, describing Poveglia as a cursed island where the dead do not rest and the living do not survive. After the plague ended, the island's story only grew darker. For years, it remained abandoned, avoided by locals who believed that the spirits of the plague victims still wandered the ruins, angry and lost. Children were warned never to even point at the island from their windows. Old fishermen claimed their boats would refuse to move if they drifted too close. They said the water became unnaturally still, as though the island itself was pulling them in. Then came the asylum. In the early 20th century, Italy chose Poveglia as the location for a mental hospital, an institution hidden from the public, far from the city where patients could scream without being heard. The building still stands, its walls cracked, its corridors filled with shadows. According to former staff members, patients constantly complained of hearing voices whispering inside their rooms. Some said they saw dark figures standing at the foot of their beds. Others claimed they were being watched by something that moved through the hallways at night, something that wasn't human. Among the staff was a doctor whose name was never officially recorded. What is known about him is whispered like a local legend. He performed brutal experiments on his patients, believing he could cure mental illness through surgery and isolation. Patients were strapped to tables, subjected to cruel procedures. Some people say that patients on this island were left alone in dark rooms for days. Their cries echoed through the stone corridors, mixing with the voices that were already believed to haunt the island. Eventually, even the doctor started hearing the whispers. Nurses said he became paranoid, convinced that the spirits of the plague victims and former patients were following him. One night, overwhelmed by fear, he climbed the bell tower and jumped. According to the story, he survived the fall, but a shadow-like figure came out of the ruins and dragged him away. His body was never found. Since then, the bell tower has remained silent. Today, Poveglia Island is completely off-limits. The Italian government sealed it, placed heavy fines, and refuses to allow renovations or tourist access. They say it's unsafe because the buildings are damaged, but locals tell a different story. They say the island is alive with trapped souls. They claim the ground sometimes shifts beneath your feet, as if something is moving under the soil. They say you can hear old hospital doors slamming shut, even though the buildings have no power. Fishermen report seeing strange lights flickering across the island at night. Some say they hear screams carried by the wind. Others claim they've seen figures standing on the shoreline, still, silent, and watching. Yet, whenever someone tries to record these things, their equipment fails. Cameras shut off. Batteries instantly drain. Boats refuse to go closer. Tourists who accidentally drift near the island describe a sudden feeling of dread, a heavy pressure on their chest, and the sense that someone is watching them from the trees. Some even say they heard footsteps along the broken pathways, even though the island is supposed to be empty. And then there are the divers. A few professional divers who explored the waters around Poveglia said the seabed felt unnatural. Instead of sand, they found thick layers of ash, bone fragments, and something else, something they couldn't identify. One diver said he felt a hand grip his leg in the darkness below, pulling him down. When he surfaced, terrified and gasping for air, there was no one beneath him. To this day, no one lives on Poveglia. No one dares to. It remains one of the most haunted and forbidden places in Europe, a silent monument to centuries of suffering. The plague victims, the abandoned patients, the lost souls, all lie beneath the trees, beneath the ruins, beneath the soil that is more bone than earth. And the island waits, quiet, patient, watching anyone who comes near. Some say the dead of Poveglia want peace. Others believe they want company. Whatever the truth is, the island remembers everything, and it does not forget those who disturb it.